Welcome everyone back to the School of Greatness podcast. Very excited. Laird Hamilton in his house.
Yeah.
Good to see you, my man.
You're welcome.
Very excited about this episode because of what you just put me through, which was an intense workout, which is really just a breathing exercise.
Yes.
And before we get into your story, I read a quote somewhere. You probably know the quote, the real quote. Something about if you master your breath, you have the strength of 10 tigers or something like that. Is that the quote? Have you heard that before?
I'm not sure, but that sounds...
There's some like Tao quote that's like, learn to master your breath, you have the strength of 10 tigers.
It's true.
Crazy, right?
It's real.
Why is breathing so important in our, a lot of entrepreneurs here, but in our existence, yes, in our lives?
I mean, and I've been fortunate to be exposed to a couple different forms of breathing. And of course, when you're in the ocean or in the water, breath is an ever important thing because your relationship with drowning. But lately I've been kind of studying under this guy Wim Hof, who does all this breath training. But the thing that you realize is that your spirit or your soul is connected to your breath, and that when you like when a baby takes its first breath is when the spirit comes into the body, just like when the breath stops, so does the spirit leave.
Wow. So
if you really want to get into like a kind of a little bit, deeper conversation, it's a connection to your soul or your spirit. It's you have and then it's obviously mandatory for life. I mean, breath is the way we get oxygen. Oxygen is essential for living, so it's all about breathing at the end. And then we know through cardiovascular activities and any kind of exertion, it's all about breathing. I mean, breathing is your fuel. That's your energy. That's your power when you're not eating food and digesting and drinking water. But oxygen is the thing that ultimately fires every cell in your body. So that's your
So have you been practicing breathing strategies or techniques or working on your breath since you've been surfing and swimming in the ocean for your whole life? Have you been doing that, or is it more in the last year you said you started to dive in and really practice it now?
Well, it's been the last year or so that I've really focused on isolation of the breath. I've been exposed to some yoga breathing and some types of yoga breathing over the years, but I haven't been so disciplined and consistent with it like I have been the last year and a half or two, and so but I indirectly have been doing it anyway.
Sure.
Because first of all, when you swim,
have to when you're swimming.
Swimming's a breathing rhythm. Being in the water, you always have to hold your breath. So you have a relationship with your breath if you do any kind of diving or free diving. I mean, you already have established a deeper relationship than
the average
normal
person.
people.
Yeah.
Because normally people they don't even think about breathing. They're not even they're not even conscious.
And if
of
you
it.
want to become a better swimmer or better in the water, whatever sport you're doing, you have to master your breath at some level.
Absolutely.
So you're getting better just by practicing it.
It's a byproduct of you doing it without even being conscious of it, and then when you do some heavy circuits or other types of intense training, you know what the breath is all about. I mean, usually the breath is what dictates the failure. At a certain point, when you're out of breath and you're behind, you look at any endurance athlete or any fighter. As soon as they start mouth breathing and everybody will say they're finished.
Yeah, their body can't keep up.
Yeah, they're done. Yeah. They're going to say they're done.
So what have you learned about yourself in the last 2 years after essentially 40 years of breathing strategies and mastering your breath, now into actually diving into these new strategies? What's opened up for you? What's been available for your body, your mind, your relationships, your health, your businesses when mastering this new way of breathing?
I think it definitely brings a certain amount of control over your system that you didn't have. You have a sensitivity to.
You have more control now in these last 2 years than you did for 40 prior years studying this?
For sure.
Wow.
For sure. Just because of the sequencing of breathing and the way the body reacts to it, and when you get into it's like any form of training. You know, you when you put stress on the system, then the system adapts. That's how it works. I mean, evolution is because there's stress on a situation, so there's an adaptation, and then we evolve. And you know, but when you start stressing the body through the breathing, then it adapts and becomes more efficient, and you start to get control of it. You find that you can breathe yourself into real calmness.
Yeah.
You can use the energy to bring your energy up and make you more aggressive or more powerful. You can control your lactic acid, threshold. I mean, it seems somewhat, boundless.
Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, I'll just reiterate what happened for those that obviously weren't here. There's probably 10 of us outside. I walked in, you guys were already doing the breathing.
Sure.
And then we took us outside on your pool deck. And we started breathing, and within about 45 seconds, I thought I was gonna pass out. You're like, okay, you're gonna breathe in a certain way, and I'll have you demonstrate this for a second. You're gonna breathe in a certain way, and you don't wanna hyperventilate, but close to it.
Yeah.
And I remember my whole body was like tingling. We're laying on our backs, and my whole body was tingling. I was like, I might pass out if I push this.
Yeah.
Because I was dizzy, I was lightheaded. I was like, it's early morning here.
Yeah.
I'm like, where am I? Up in Malibu.
For sure.
And it was intense. And we did it I was like, yeah, okay, maybe this is like a 10, 15-minute thing, warm up for the real workout.
Yeah.
But we did it over an hour, it felt like, of breathing.
For sure.
It was one of the most intense things I've ever done, one of the most intense workouts. And I've played, high-level sports in 3 different sports.
Absolutely.
It was insane.
But I guess that's really the point. The point is that you can just be not moving and put the system through an intensity that is more intense than moving all the parts. And I think that's again part of the mastery of it. Like when because we're so trained to believe that working out is something that you bang iron and you run and you bang and it's all this hammering, and then we have to feel sore. It feel like someone punched you to feel like that was a good workout. Oh yeah, it was a good. Oh yeah, me too. Can you walk? Oh, I can't walk. I can't walk either. Like that, and that was and we consider that to be good training. When you can go into a situation where you're almost sedentary, you're laying there, and then maybe we do, and then maybe we make you do a couple push-ups, and then you just go to a whole nother place. It kind of shines a light on really what is training and what is working out and what is being in shape and what is all of that we have we try to box up, we try to package and say, well, this is it, and we have a pretty good mindset about what we think it is, and then all of a sudden something like that comes along and you're like, well, actually we don't know what it is, but they really feed each other. Those systems are all they're all feeding each other. Your body doesn't really know the difference. If you can implement strict breathing, it doesn't know the difference between that and you running and forcing your body to breathe hard. At the end, your body's like, okay, well, I need oxygen for whatever reason it is, either because I don't have it or because I'm burning it off. At the end, it needs it. It needs it. Doesn't need to know why. And so then you have to get it. How do I get it? I got to do it through the breathing. And so you can, if you're disciplined. I mean, we learned because we were doing these altitude mask training. So we have these special masks.
Training masks. Yep.
But they weren't not the restriction mask, but an actual mask that simulates altitude.
Sure.
And you put these resistors on it, and it's a process that they developed for Russian fighter jet pilots. Before they had pressurized cabins. They'd send these guys up, and they'd fly up to 15,000 feet, and all of a sudden they'd just burrow in, and they're like, well, what's wrong? Well, they're not acclimated to the altitude. So how do we acclimate them? How do we acclimate thousands of them in a short period of time? And so they developed this mask system with these restrictors. And what you do is you wear an oximeter that tells you where your blood levels are. So you can see where the blood level is, and you're supposed to get your blood level down to like 70% oxygen, and you stay there for 3 minutes, and then you come back out. It takes 3 minutes to get there, and you do that 6 times, and then you do that once a day, and then within a couple months
you can build up to it, and
right to 20,000 feet, and you're like, no problem.
You're fine.
But you realize that we can implement that same thing just by controlling your breathing and by restricting it, and you don't even need this thing, but it takes the discipline and it takes the time.
Yeah, it took, we did an hour of it. It was like,
The
interesting thing was I was doing it And I realized that I wasn't focused on anything else in my life. I wasn't, it came up in a couple moments. I was like, oh, what about that thing that I was stressed about yesterday and about this relationship issue I have and about my business? But then it was like, you're going through so much in your body, you have to be in the moment present to your breath that you can't stress about something else, which was so fascinating. I was like, wow, I just did an hour of meditation essentially.
Meditation. It's actually, and that's the whole thing with, when a lot of Wim's training, the Iceman's training has to do with, and this is, because I've been exposed to different forms of meditation, this is a mechanical meditation system where you can actually implement a process to meditate, not an ethereal process, not something where you have to kind of, where you get to a swami and he tells you to go to this thing, and and from my scientific practical mindset where I come from, it doesn't work. I can't get there. It's like, and transcendental, and I'm all, okay, yeah, that's great. But when you tell me breathe this many times, exhale, hold, breathe again, exhale, hold. You're going to see this. Mentality. You're going to feel this. Athlete. Yeah. I'm coming from math. I'm coming from practical, this does that, that does this. I need that. It can't be too ethereal for me. Some people actually excel in the ethereal, but I don't. I'm not. That's not the way my mind works.
You need to be in your body more.
That's right.
Yeah.
And this is a way that it's allowed me to do some meditation that, first of all, I didn't know it was possible. And I'm like, wow, that's what they're talking about when the guy, I probably experienced some things that it takes somebody, 10 or 15 years or more to from being taught by a guy in Tibet to even get near.
But you're getting into it in 3 to 6 months by practicing it and being in your body, not just being in your head.
No. And the presence, like you said, all of a sudden you're in a spot where you aren't thinking about there's nothing else.
You can't.
There's nothing. It won't allow you.
Like there were a couple moments I think when we were just relaxing, for like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
I was like,
you'll drift for a second, but we'll just bring it right back.
And then you're like, okay, here's the breathing exercise. Yeah. So if you can, let's maybe do like 15 to 20 seconds of what someone could practice at home in a safe environment.
Yeah.
Because you were pushing us pretty hard, and maybe you weren't, but for me as a newbie, I was like, oh, this is the real deal.
Yeah, well, you need to go into it slowly. I mean, you can go online and get a course from Wim. Like he has an incredible online program. Basically the foundation of it really has to do with and I call it a circle breath. And I don't even, I'm an amateur, but I know that I look at it as a circle breath in the sense of that the in and the out are similar, and then it's really it's a rhythm. And it's almost like hyperventilation, but not that, because hyperventilation takes a lot of energy and you're short breathing.
So what does hyperventilation look like?
Hyperventilation is more like that, where you start to, where you were not really getting, you can get a CO2 buildup, which happens, which makes you can pass out doing any kind of breathing, or lack thereof.
Yeah.
But this breathing is more like, like if you think about pumping something up, like how you pump a raft up, or you blow a balloon up, you blow a balloon up like,
right.
So you're in that kind of a rhythm, and it really is about oxygenation, right? It's about getting oxygen into the system in a very efficient way and full saturation. And then from there, and you'll get, you'll have all these, sensations. Like you said, you feel your body tingle. You'll have weird things on your lips or ears.
I was getting lightheaded. I thought I was gonna pass out.
But those are totally normal things.
So what's the purpose of oxygenating your body? What's that purpose? What's that do for the body once it's complete?
Well, I mean, ultimately, it definitely will allow you to work harder, so that if you implement, like for example, you can do, in Wim's program, you do these push-ups, and you do them just with normal breathing, and then he has you sit there, and then you oxygenate your system, and you exhale and hold your breath and do push-ups, and you do more push-ups on an exhale breath hold than you did while you were breathing.
Wait, so you could do more push-ups, completely letting it go and then holding it, not taking a breath in and pushing. You can do more push-ups than if you were breathing.
Yes.
How is that even possible? Doesn't your muscles need the oxygen?
They do, but the fact is that you've saturated your system with a volume of oxygen that you normally don't get when you just normal breathe and do an activity. And that's really what it's about, right? It's about you understanding that the oxygen that you store in your system is greater than the one you're getting.
Yeah.
And to get more, because also you have to remember it takes energy to breathe.
Yeah.
So when you add an activity with breathing, then now it takes energy just to do the breathing. And because our breathing isn't very efficient, we're not absorbing enough when you compound that with the amount of energy it takes to do the activity, right? So yeah, the breathing energy, the energy it takes to do the activity, and then you're behind. And that's why ultimately the muscles don't fail because they're failing. They're just not getting the oxygen they need.
I mean, we were like, those of us who had shirts on, we're dripping in sweat.
Absolutely.
Just breathing.
Absolutely.
And it's not even that hot out right now.
I know that. No, I know. It's counterintuitive. You look at it, you're like, oh yeah, and again, to have the discipline to be able to do it and implement an hour of breathing and realize that you're really getting an incredible workout. That's part of the process. I think that's part of it. It's to teach you that and at a certain point, you either have to be exposed to people that are doing it, or you have to be at a maturity level to handle it, because our normal mindset, we just got to grind away at stuff, and it's because that's actually an easier way to approach things.
Yeah,
it's easier just to go, I'm going to get on my bike and I'm going to ride for 2 hours straight, or I'm going to go in here and I'm going to grab this weights and I'm just going to bang this weights, or I'm going to sprint back and forth across this field. It's another thing to go, okay, I'm going to go lay down.
It's more discipline to do what we did.
Exactly. Which is the irony of it, right? It almost takes more discipline to do nothing than it does to do something. But that's kind of the irony of the story in a way.
It's interesting because I was so grateful that you were facilitating it for us, because it was my first time. I don't know if there were other guys' first time there.
A couple of the boys.
Guys.
I think they've done it once or something.
Yeah. And it was interesting because I was just I was like, you made it so comfortable for us. Yeah. At least for me.
Yeah.
You're like, it's okay. You don't have to do the same pace as everyone else. If you need to breathe, you can take a break.
For sure.
And I really appreciated how you were facilitating that. You become like a master of teaching it through doing it yourself. It sounds like.
Well, but also that's an approach that I think that I've already always had. I think that's a little bit how I work in my, and it's not something that people perceive of me because of what I do. They think they're going to come and get hammered. Yeah. And that's not the way I approach things. Have you read Natural Born Heroes?
Not yet.
So Natural Born Heroes is a phenomenal book, but there's a big, for me it was biblical, because it was like of the philosophies of some of the guys in the book, like the guys that are like fitness natural, that were all about training in nature, but they were also all about no competition. They were against competition because they felt like that it really was a restriction of elevation of everybody's individual thing. And I, because of my kind of lack of, because of my approach to competition, that I always feel like, that a lot of our evolution gets held back because we protect information, because it's really about, I'm going to try to beat you. So if I know something that I think I can beat you with, I won't tell you, because then you'd have it too and I wouldn't be able to beat you. But if my objective is to make you be as good as you can be, and I'm going to try to be as good as I can be, I will be like, you can't believe this, try this. And so that's more how I approach things. And I think because of, especially like in big wave riding, when we've gone out and done the things we've done, that it has to do with the fact that we've done it with camaraderie. We've done it with community. And really the evolution of man, if you looked at why man survived, was because of that was the way we behaved. And it was only when we became so populated and so dense did we create competition, was more out of entertainment, that really competition was designed for entertainment. That's why we have competition. Wow. And at the end, fighting and all these things that we have, they're not real fighting, because real fighting doesn't last very long and it's very brutal. It would never be, you wouldn't watch it on TV, and it wouldn't be something that, and you wouldn't just do it unless you were planning on actually killing a person. Yeah. So, and there's also this thing about that everybody being able to do it, like true arts, true fighting, or true activities are meant that a child should be able to do it and an old person should be able to do it, to make it something that really is for the species. Yeah. So again, these are all kind of deep ingrained ways of approaching it, but that's how I I never approach it like, hey, I'm going to hammer you. Now, if people come with the attitude like, hey, I can do this, then I might subject them to something. But that will be only because that's what they're asking for.
Yeah.
If somebody comes to me in confidence, like, hey, I'm going to give
Take
myself to you.
Yeah,
take care of me. I'm always going to do
yeah.
that because I think that, I mean, it has to do with how I grew up and where we are in dealing with heavy situations.
Yeah.
The situations are heavy enough. We don't need to do anything.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
need to go and see how long you can hold your breath. And because that doesn't do anything. And the bottom line is that you can destroy anybody. I don't care who you are. I can stack more weights. I can make you hold your breath longer. It's like the stretch is deeper, the breath holding, everything can always be, you can always create something that's undoable.
Yeah.
It's more about creating something that's doable and how far can we push that? How, and again, individually push your barrier, and it's interesting because that's total Wim Hof philosophy. That's total, natural born heroes philosophy. Like I see it and you start to see it, and in a way that's Tough Mudder's philosophy, that Spartan race philosophy. I mean, these are all about getting the collective through and ultimately that really is the most primal system because that's how we made it. Because without each other in our evolution, what match are we against all the things in the world? We're no match.
It's kind of like
together.
Yeah, it's kind of like nobody wins unless we all win mentality.
Absolutely. Well, that's right.
Yeah.
Nobody survives unless we all survive.
Yeah.
And so in a way, I mean, it doesn't mean I don't like healthy competition and the fun of a little paddleboard race or some bocce ball or something.
Yeah.
And my competition concept really used to be more like, or should I say, is more related to like, okay, you want to compete with me and you think you're courageous. Well, then we'll go to a big cliff and we'll just keep going up until one of us doesn't jump, and whoever jumps higher is the winner. Because I always thought that was a real defined
through courage.
Courage.
Yeah, wow.
For me, I go. You want to really talk about. You want true competition. We have competition with courage, and I think that's part of the process that brought me to riding giant waves. That I thought, well, if I ride the biggest waves in the world, and I ride bigger waves than anybody else has ever ridden, and most of the waves I ride, no one wants to ride. That kind of puts me in a unique position.
Yeah, it's your own.
That puts me like, and I mean, I always love the term, the victory through attrition.
Through attrition, what's that? What do you mean
by
that?
The last guy standing. That at the end, you don't even need to be any good.
Right.
If you're the last guy and everybody else is laid out,
sure,
in the 300, when there's only one guy standing, you're the winner.
It's interesting. And through that approach, you can give all your secrets away. You can give all the information away. It's still who's got the most courage.
That's right.
So you can just be as good as me
That's
technically,
right. That's right.
all the
That's
information you need,
That's
but
right.
are you willing to go above and beyond
That's right.
me?
That's right.
So what
and then it becomes a skill thing.
Yeah.
So then you add skill to that too.
Yes.
So that as an added element of, because there's always some crazy guy that'll do anything stupid too. So then, will they survive? So then, which again, that's part of the thing. But again, it's part about the survival thing where the guy might be able to go higher, but if you go up to a cliff and then the guy jumps higher than you and he dies,
he doesn't win.
Then you went higher, right?
Yeah,
so again, it has to do with,
Wow.
It has to do with, you have to still have, you can't have the element of who's the craziest because you got
to have skill. Yeah.
You got to have, there has to be, and you also have to have understanding. Mm-hmm. You have to have experience to know where the line is, where your line is.
Yeah.
Where your line is, right? Because you always have somebody that's willing to be a little bit
reckless or
crazier, but then can they do that?
Can they complete
year
it?
in and year out?
Yeah.
I mean, just saying year in and year out.
Right. So what got you into big wave surfing in the first place? What got you inspired by that sport?
Well, environment.
Yeah, you grew up in Hawaii.
I was
right?
in Hawaii. I was
I
was on the North Shore of Oahu when I was very young, and exposed to, exposed to the biggest waves in the world, and then exposed to the greatest big wave surfers in the world, and then having a natural kind of thing about a little like daredevil, thrill seeker. Like I just had a thing, and it's a certain, you just have, it's like a mechanism that I think there's some science behind, that certain guys are born with like I think they're just missing something, like the thing about like,
loose.
probably not, where that line is of not to do, or, but there's, and I think there's a certain amount of us that it was important that we had that, because we needed to be able to, do that. I said yesterday in a conversation that there needs to be an expendability aspect to a certain group in our species.
Yeah.
We have to have that. That's part of what we needed in order to survive. Like
if no one's willing to go against the tiger or whatever, then we all die. If no one's willing to figure it out.
Right.
Yeah.
And while he's getting eaten, we can all run and maybe we can pull it off.
Right.
So and so we have that. I mean, that happens a lot with the young, and that's why most of the wars are with young males. Young males have it, I think, and then maybe some of us have it more of it and we keep it longer. But at the end, they were we were talking about dolphins, how they protect themselves when they're being attacked. And they put the babies in the middle, the mothers around the babies, the old people around the mothers, then the fathers, and then the adolescent males are on the outside.
Wow.
And because they're the ones that are the most aggressive and they're the most willing to take risk. And you look and I go, well, human species aren't too far away from that.
Pretty similar, yeah.
We're the ones that are young male, and then there's the ones within that group that have that, like I said, that little mechanism that drives you. So that's what drove me to big was because I had something inside of me. It was just this thing, and when you combine that with maybe you just start to have some things to prove, and maybe some kind of certain family dynamics and environments of racial tension, and you feed all those things into the
perfect storm. Yeah. And did you have all that?
Yeah.
All those things?
For sure.
And so what was the goal for you growing up? Was it to be the best big wave surfer? Was it to prove people wrong? Was it to...
No, well, maybe all of those. Like I had teachers say, a lot of the Hawaiians and the Japanese and the other people that I grew up with were like, they used to say, hey, boy, you can't eat your surfboard, because I'd go surfing every day and I just had to be like crazed about surfing. And they're like, you can't eat that thing. Like, hey, you're going to need to work or you have to survive. And I was like, oh, no, I think I can eat this thing. But or teachers telling you'll be nothing, or being in an environment where, that you're white and everybody else isn't.
Right.
And you're kind of like that, puts you
outsider.
as an outsider. And that if you are great at this thing, that they might not need to like you, but they'll respect you.
Sure.
I have a saying, like, they don't need to like me, but they need to respect me. And so that was a big part of it, So, that was a big, those were the things that fed the, and I remember when I was a kid at one point thinking, like going to bed, wishing I would wake up as a giant Hawaiian, just because
Really?
you couldn't date girls, and, you just had all these dynamics. It was like a nightmare. But those were the things that I think that also kind of those are the things that cultivated my,
drive and passion.
Oh yeah, and my
like...
relentlessness and my fearlessness and all the, which I think I already had the mechanism, so it was perfect. Like I already had all the stuff, and then it was, what do we say? You can't make an eagle out of a chicken. You can only make a super chicken. But I was fortunate maybe that I had I had an Eagles mentality, and then I was in an environment for training eagles, and so I had like a good combination of all the pieces that made it something that. It was destiny.
Sure. What was the biggest adversity you feel like you had to go through growing up or in your young adult life?
I mean, listen, because we all can have 1,000 reasons why we're poor me, and look what happened, and I wouldn't change one thing, but we were poor for sure, very poor, and people, it's interesting. I've had a conversation with some people that are like, somebody from another country says, oh, I wasn't raised I was raised in a third world country and this and that. And I'm like, yeah, but did you have an outhouse? I had to explain to them what an outhouse was. I go, do you ever have cold showers? Like, do you ever have a tin roof on your house, open tin roof with screen windows? Like, I mean, like this is how, and
living off the land essentially.
Yeah, well,
Hawaii, there's lots of fruits.
Yeah. But you live off, but you have that. I mean, the Hawaiians, they lived off the land well.
Yes.
So I got, and I ate the way they ate, and I worked with them, and I think that also led to cultivating my strength.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that because I was with the local people, that the way they lived, and I always used to say, I'm looking white, but I'm thinking brown, So and but those things. I mean, I know that the being a haole was that was probably the overriding blanket of the whole thing. I mean, okay, money, whatever. Hawaii.
A haole is a white person in Hawaii. I lived on the big on Oahu for 3 months.
Exactly.
I was in the
So you know.
I was in the taro fields.
Yeah,
I was
exactly.
making poi. I was like,
Exactly. So you know.
yeah, I know a little.
I grew up
yeah.
eating
I mean,
taro and poi and pulling
yeah.
taro and
It's not that good.
working at a pig farm and yeah. So,
That's interesting.
but so that I think that was probably the most intense part is that the racial.
Really,
the
that was the
racial-
most intense.
I think so.
And being in America still.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Interesting.
That didn't mean anything. America
Yeah.
meant nothing. Because
like a
Hawaii,
different country,
we're
yeah.
not America. We're
Yeah,
Hawaii.
exactly.
Like when I go to Europe, people go, "Oh, you're from America." I go,
USA, no, it's Hawaii. Yeah,
Hawaii.
It's
They
a
go,
different
well, that's
experience.
not America. I go,
It's a different
Hawaii.
culture, yeah.
Yeah. But so I would. But if I looked at any one thing, I'd probably say, I'd say that was probably the most intense part of because it's in your school, it's at your
Yeah.
house, it just doesn't
All the time.
all the time.
Now-
Affects who you can't date, you can't this,
Really?
you can't go. It's like everything's affected by it.
Yeah. Now, do you feel like, was there a moment during a big competition where you earned everyone's respect, or was it kind of like over time they were like, oh, here's the Howley, we respect you now for what you're creating, you're creating this pride of Hawaii, or you're making us proud. Was there a moment, or was it kind of like it just grew over time?
No, I think it was over time. I think there were moments.
Yeah.
I think there were moments that would kind of solidify. I mean, at a certain point, you have to start within your hometown or within your neighborhood, and you earn the respect of the people most immediately touching you, and then eventually you earn a little bit more as you get more well known and
Yeah.
you're more out there. You earn more respect. But I never ever. I never think I'm not a Howley. I'm not a white guy. Because I'm never not going to be a white guy.
Right.
So I don't ever have that unrealistic approach,
Sure.
which means that if I go to the wrong neighborhood or someplace where they don't know me, I'll be back where I began.
Yeah.
And so I'm realistic about that. I also know I have a lot of giant guys that would back me if if something happened.
Sure.
But I'm used to kind of dealing with things on my own.
Yeah.
And so but yeah, it's those are the things that shape you. I mean,
Yeah,
those are the
of
things
course.
that really, it's the tempering that makes you what you are. And I have such respect for the culture that I was raised in. And actually most of the time, it wasn't the Hawaiians that really, that were the racists. It was a lot of the other cultures that were there that were like brought by the missionaries to be migrant workers.
Really?
Whether it's because you had tons of Chinese, tons of Japanese,
Yeah.
Filipinos, Portuguese. Which Portuguese don't think they're white because they have black hair.
Yeah.
So
Right.
and I'm like, actually, you're whiter than I am.
Sure.
I'm tan, but
Yeah.
so you have a lot of those guys, and the real Hawaiians. I mean, other than a few warriors, which you could earn their respect. Some of these other guys, you were incapable of earning their respect
Yeah.
because they didn't even respect themselves.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's a whole culture there. Yeah. If you would have grown up in the Orange County, where would
Which
you?
is what people think.
You're right. That you
Which
grew
people,
up there.
people would think when they look at me. I mean, because I'm from Southern
Of course,
California, they
with the
think
blonde hair,
they
you got
think
the-
that that I was the captain of the football team and
Yeah.
that I
Water polo. And
Oh
this
yeah,
and
and
that.
I was homecoming king with the homecoming queen and all that stuff, and I'm like, obviously you don't know me.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be who I am.
You wouldn't be who you are.
I wouldn't be. No, I would be. I mean, I don't know what I would be. I think I still have some certain things that are innate to my personality. Which there's a real good chance I could be incarcerated, even
Sure.
where I grew up, had I not took a couple of the rights when I could have gone left,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just because my nature of my defiance and my, what my friend calls me a contrarian, but I just, I always quote Thoreau, which is, disobedience is the true foundation of liberty, and the obedient shall be slaves. So I'm from the disobedient group. So that doesn't go well in in organized society.
Of course.
It's good out there in the frontier, in the front. So as long as I can stay in the frontier, I'm cool. I was so blessed to have my mom take me to Hawaii as a child.
Yeah.
I was born in San Francisco. We moved to Hawaii when I was 3 months old.
Wow.
And so it was a technicality that I wasn't born in Hawaii. Which it would have been a little easier because at least I could have stood up for myself and said, I'm born here,
Yeah.
But I wasn't, so I didn't even have that, which in a way, maybe that's just, again, just a little added factor to
little chip on your shoulder.
just a little extra, boost.
Sure.
Boost in the rocket.
Yeah, I like it. Now I'm curious. I'm fascinated with the zone and getting in the zone. And you know, from the moment I met you a few hours ago, right when you're breathing, I walked in and you're breathing intensely, and then walking up, and I was like, okay, this guy's in the zone already. Right when I met you.
Yeah.
One, how do you prepare to get into the zone when you're jumping off a 200-foot cliff, or you're in a big wave, or whatever you're doing, these breathing strategies, a workout, anything you're doing, the pool stuff? How do you prepare to get into the zone? Because you can't just, I'm going to go surf a big wave today and jump on the board and just take it lightly, I would assume, because your life is at hand. Yeah. So what do you do to prepare for that?
Well, I mean, a big part of it, I've been doing this so long that I have the ability to kind of just go and do it.
Access it, yeah.
It's kind of just, it's just right below the surface. It's just sitting there like the whole
Any
time.
Moment,
It can just rear its head, which is good and bad.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not something that, because you have the capacity to just do things in a way that you have to govern that, because that's the kind of stuff that doesn't go over well in a densely populated area.
Yeah.
But a lot of it has to do with the preparation. I'd say the real art of the preparation for being in the zone is your preparation. That it's really about, the way you eat, the way you sleep, the way you live, what your relationships are, all those stuff. Like, you're not distracted with all this, and you get rid of stuff quickly. Like, I get rid of stuff I have high turnover, so I get rid of, if I have a problem with somebody, I go talk to them. I call them up. I drive right to their house. Wow. If I just want to wipe it.
You want to get clear.
I want it clean. Yeah. I don't want anything. I don't like any kind of looming thing, and I just want to. Even if we just agree to disagree, I want to get.
At least you're clear on the disagreement.
I'm clear. Yeah. I'm good. Like, we go, we handle it. And a lot of times I'll say stuff to people and do things that I'm not right, but that's how I feel.
Yeah.
And I quote Dennis Miller, the comedian, all the time, and I say, this is my opinion. I could be wrong, but it's my opinion. This is how I feel. And through that process, I think that really helps me have a cleaner slate, and I think that's really a critical part of coming into being in the zone.
Yeah, because you're clear energy, you're focused, you're
right.
not wondering about relationship issues.
Exactly, which is a big factor in your ability to, because really the zone is ultimately the now.
Not holding on to the past, not worried and fearful of the future.
It's the now. It's the moment, right? And that's what surfing's about. I mean, I always tell people the act of riding a wave really has no beginning and no end. It's just a continuation of where you left off. And so you go and you're in this thing, and there's ends of rides and beginnings of rides, but surfing itself, of the art of, or the act of riding the wave, that motion, that feeling, that's just a place where there's no time, there's no beginning and no end. That's why we seek it out. We crave it, like what, we do meditate. That is a meditation. Yeah. That in that moment, and for somebody who's learning, I'm jealous because they can do it on a 1 foot wave. The wave can be this big, and they go, and then all of a sudden they're like, it's like in Star Wars when they go into hyperspace, where everything just goes whee, that. Well, that's what it is, and you're like, and then it ends, and you're like, oh, I want to go do that again, But it's a really unique thing, and that zone, or that's what that is. I mean, that's what that is in any sport and any level. And when people are so skilled at something that they've done it for so many hours, it's an easier place for them to be in, and they also are so familiar with it. It's that they have a unique ability to be in it sooner and stay in it longer, and it's not something, and it becomes very unconscious. It's not something that they really have to work towards. It's just something that their body implements.
Yeah. What would you say is one of the things that you've done in your life that you're most proud of, that maybe not that many people know about you?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm the most proud of. I'm the most proud of my family. So, that's I'm the most proud of my relationship. My relationship with my wife, with Gabby, my girlfriend, my lover, and my children, and you know, that, and then the selfish side of it, first of all, I'm most proud of the fact that I'm still here, that I've survived, and I'm like still breathing. Because people are, hey, how you doing? I'm like, well, air's still coming in and out of the hole right now. Pretty fantastic. So, so that's a big part of it. That I've had the fortune to survive, the blessing to survive, and that I'm still here. That's a big thing. And then if you want to get into, you know, what am I the most proud of something like, of my discipline? Like I quit drinking like 9 years ago, and it was a thing more out of my discipline than it was out of like, and there was nothing good coming from it. And I was I got to a point where I was tired of telling myself, and my favorite was red wine, and I could drink a couple bottles every night, and
couple bottles.
Oh yeah.
Not glasses, bottles.
Yeah, well, bottles only 3 glasses.
Okay.
Let's get that straight.
Okay.
But you know, I could have 5 or 6 whatever glasses a night,
sure.
and do that every night, and wake up at 5 in the morning and train for 5 hours, and ride giant waves and run around and do all this stuff too. So it was easy for me. It was easy for me to justify it. And then at a certain point, I got tired of lying to myself. And my mom's gone now, but one of her quotes that I always use is that if you can't be true to yourself, you can't be true to anybody. So I kind of, if I can't be true to myself, and I'm telling myself I can do this, but I don't do it, then how deep are my relationships, and what can I do there? And so I went, okay, boom, and I just stopped drinking. You know, I was one day, and you know, I always say all the dumbest things I ever did were when I was drinking, which they are. If I look back and look at stupid things I've done, I was like, oh yeah, that was drunk, for sure. It says right on the bottle, impairs motor skills. You know, dulls your judgment.
Yeah, of course, yeah. What would you say is the scariest thing or scariest encounter you've ever experienced with all the extreme things you've done? Was there a moment where you really thought, more than every other moment, wow, this is it, like, I'm done?
You know, I got lost at sea, and it was only for the day, but a day's a long time.
Only for a day?
Yeah. Only
That's
for
still
a day.
scary.
Yeah, it was scary.
Wow.
It was scary.
How'd you get lost?
I was jet skiing between islands in Hawaii, and the fog was really bad from the volcano. The smoke from the volcano was, the visibility was less than a mile, and I went just off course. Just got the unusual current, and a combination of a few factors just put me out in the middle of the ocean, about 60 miles north of the Big Island, and which kind of the next stop's Alaska or something.
Oh my goodness.
It's a bad world because you're in the middle of the ocean anyway.
Yeah.
And so I had a while to think about things, and I was like, you know, I mean, I've had other traumatic moments that were short-lived.
Like 2 minutes or,
Yeah, you know, being held down at the bottom of the ocean by a giant wave, and wondering, with boots on, wondering if you're ever going to come up, and, you know, falling in glaciers. I mean, I've had a lot of pinned on waterfall. I mean, there's a long list. I can just keep going, but the fact is that this one was like a stretched out one. And
your mind will play tricks on you.
That's right. You start, you know, when you sit with yourself for 14 hours and, you know, wonder if you're ever going to get back again. It's, you know, and I can only imagine what you'd do if you went days and days. I mean, at a certain point, you start, I think, having to, you know, you have to start trying to figure out, you know, how to survive. But I wasn't quite to that point yet. I was still on the, you know, am I gonna, you know?
You weren't that hungry yet.
No, not yet. But
wow. So what happened? A boat came by?
I got rescued by the Coast Guard. I had an EPIRB, which I didn't know if it was working or not. You know, you just turn them on, and they have a little light that beeps, and, you know, you don't know what that means. I mean, it could be beeping. It doesn't mean anybody's reading it, or are they hearing it? And so that had like a C-130 flew over me. I mean, first of all, finding somebody in the ocean, even with an EPIRB, is like finding a needle in a haystack.
Oh my goodness!
Especially when you're, you know, on a jet ski.
So many miles.
It's a big place.
So what happened mentally for you, or emotionally, after that moment when you saw the Coast Guard coming up, realized?
No, the plane flew over first.
Oh, the plane flew over.
Dropped.
You're like,
and I was like, well, the plane's not going to be able to pick me up. And then, so it flew away, and I was like, well, first it flew over and didn't see me, and I was like, well, that was it. That was my shot. It's over.
Oh man!
And then it came back around like 45 minutes later and was down low, and then they flew over and saw me, and then it split, and I'm like, because I was thinking, oh right, the plane's here, and then I'm like, well, what are they going to do? Like, how am I going to get? I can't get. It's not going to land.
Yeah.
And so, and then about an hour after that, a chopper showed up and
you knew.
And plucked me out. Yeah, they plucked me out of the water. And
wow. Oh, so it was a helicopter.
yeah,
Gotcha.
with a basket. Well, I mean, the big red boys.
Sure.
Those
So it
long
wasn't
range.
a boat. It was a
No.
Wow.
No, it was a chopper. The boat would have been, probably would have been at night. It would
So you were
have been hard
sitting
to
on,
find me.
and you were sitting on the jet ski.
Yeah, I'd been rowing for a while. I had a makeshift oar system that I had brought with me just in case of something. I don't know what I thought, in case something broke down. So I had makeshift oars, and I actually hadn't run the jet ski out of gas because I was had the foresight to know, like, hey, listen, if it doesn't have any gas, I'm immobile.
Stuck.
Where at least if I have a little bit, I can run away from a shark, or I can go to a boat, or I have some mobility. So I just
smart.
left a gallon in it, like,
wow,
leave a gallon.
And what did you? I mean, was there any shift inside of you after that moment where you're like, okay, if
Well,
I
I
get
said there
saved-
was, and then everybody else just laughed. But I definitely, I prayed and said, please, Lord, save me, and I promise I'll turn from my sinful ways.
And did you?
And I did. I think I did
months.
partially. I mean, I think at a certain point, it definitely. I mean, each one of those things has a effect on the wheel. Every spoke, you just don't know what effect what spoke has, and how that played in. But I mean, absolutely, how that affected me.
Yeah.
It was pretty heavy. And then I was working on Waterworld at the time, the movie, and I was in the stunt department. And when I got there, the stunt guys just embraced me like wow. One of their lost brothers. And I mean, it was a big emotional. When I got back in the Coast Guard helicopter and landed, I had all my family was at the airport, and
wow.
it was an intense emotional thing. I say that it rounded some of the corners.
Yeah, a little bit.
They just filed some of the edges. But
I mean, when I was in Hawaii, I remember hearing the story of the legend Eddie Aikau, who
exactly.
went out and sacrificed his life, and it's like he was the biggest hero in Hawaii. I'm assuming one of the biggest heroes. And it's almost like you almost experienced the same thing.
Yeah, I might not have got the hero part, but I definitely was experiencing the loss at sea part.
The idiot part, yeah. Now, do you still do the big extreme waves and the big extreme?
I do.
You do?
I do.
Is it as big as it used to be?
What's as big as it'll get me?
Right, as big as it gets you? Yeah, but it's as big as it used to be 20 years ago?
It's as big as the ocean will give me.
Oh, really? You go as big as you can go, still?
It's not, yeah.
And does it worry you now with the family and doing these extreme activities still?
I mean, it worries me because it always has worried me. So it doesn't, I don't think that the intensity of the fear, when it is as much as it can be, I don't think can increase.
Right, it's scary.
I don't think that at a certain point, there's only so much fear that you can, really muster, and
right.
At the end, I don't think it. That's a commonly asked question is, do you do it different because you have daughters and a family? And I continue to answer it in the same way I have from the beginning, which is, I really want them to know me for who I am. And I'm a big wave rider as one of the things that I do. And I want them to see how that makes me. That when I'm done doing that, what do I look like? Before I do it, what do I look like? What is that? What's that effect on Dad?
What's it make you feel? Who do you become when you?
Well, I have an energy that comes into me that's that it's from there, that the ocean gives me, that it's that extra, it's that that superhuman power that you get to do these things that it gives you. And the ocean gives you this power. When the surf's big, it's like I can be wounded, hurt, and it's like you can come up for it, and then you get and you're frantic before you're in. If there's a forecast that's going to be giant, you can be have an edge and be unruly in the anticipation of it, and and then tired right before, sometimes really just exhausted from the anticipation, but it's almost like the body has a mechanism to kind of shut the system way down before it's going to come up. So you just kind of get that, and and then of course the elated, either the agony of defeat, or the or just the elated feeling of and expression of accomplishing something unique and special, and I continue to evolve in the way I do it. So I mean, my objectives are still the same. I don't participate in it's like I've shifted to another aspect of big waves because through my natural evolution, and not for any other reason than that. And I'm fortunate that like the last season I just had was that was the highest kind of level of what I could do that I've had so far.
Really?
So
last season, wow.
Yeah. So and it's in a way now I at this point I don't think I could do what I did 20 years ago the way I did it 20 years ago, but mostly because that's not what I'm doing, not because I couldn't do it if that's what I was doing. It's just I'm not doing that, and I think I have a unique and I would like to say maybe part of it was a plan, but I think I have something unique, which is I get to keep changing it.
Of course, evolving.
Yeah, which allows me, first of all, to adjust the goal. So the sport changes a little bit each time, so the goal changes. So I keep shifting and adapt, and which leads me to ultimately continue contentment and avoiding what a famous stuntman, don't let your memories be bigger than your dreams. And so my dreams continue to be bigger than my memories, and as big as my memories are. And so that's a big thing. I think that's a big part of what we're right now. The focus is on hydrofoil surfing, and we know through
that's what the thing underneath,
the board lifts up and flies above the
cool.
water. A lot more dangerous. You're attached to the board. The board's like a samurai sword, but which adds to the danger. It makes so you don't need quite as big a surf to have it be feel dangerous. And interesting. Which is interesting because now it's like in less conditions you can be. It'd be like you're a motorbike racer and then now you do it naked, so you go half the speed and it's twice as scary. So it's a little bit like that kind of a situation where but yet on the top end of it, we know that this is the way that we can ride the biggest waves in the world.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So,
what would life be like if there were no waves?
It'd be flat. You'd have to have giant motors. There'd have to be a lot of pistons involved and a lot of fuel to make up for that.
Okay.
I mean, but if there was no waves, ultimately,
if there was no waves for you to surf.
Listen, if there was no waves, there would be no life. That's the only thing. That's the one little catch about that one, because if there was no waves, it'd mean that there was no storms, which means there'd be no weather, which means that we'd have a hard time existing here because everything would be in chaos. So it's just a coincidence that the waves are an intricate part of nature and its energy and our life on Earth. So
we need storms to thrive, is what you're telling me.
We do. We need for our environment to keep churning and mixing the air, and I think creating the rain and creating the systems. I mean, that's an essential part of our environment.
Would you say, as individuals, we need storms to thrive as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's all.
It's the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It's symbolic. There's always.
Of course. That's what I was going for.
Yeah.
Well, I want to finish with a couple of questions.
Okay.
Because this has been awesome. So thank you so far for sharing everything. One of the things I want to ask is, what are you most grateful for recently?
No. Well, I'm most grateful for my family, for sure. I mean, it's
not just because Gabby's listening.
No, not just because Gabby's listening, but yeah, just love. I think I'm most grateful for loving and being loved. Being loved is, by your friends, of course, first by your family, and that I've been able to do the things that I love so much and make a life of it. I think that's been, that's been something that's been it's just been an amazing. It continues to be an amazing blessing to I always quote the jerk, again, find your special purpose. But that's what I want my daughters to do: find their special purpose. But to be able to find your find your special purpose and then do it. Find it young, and then have a life of doing it. And when I look at what I've been able to do in my life, I mean, I've lived lives, many lives, and I see, I'm around some of the wealthiest people in the world, and I feel sorry for them because that with all that abundance of wealth, they don't have what is the greatest gift, the greatest treasure, which is ultimately first having great relations, but ultimately great experiences, and these ones that you can't buy. You can't buy this stuff because you can't buy skill, and you can't buy experience. You have to earn it, and you have to learn it, and it's. I mean, that's just That's
what's the key to having great relationships while you go after your dream, after your big dreams? And what's the key to thriving in relationships?
I mean, I think there's a combination of a couple things. To be honest, I think you got to be truthful with yourself, with the people, whoever that is. You got to be truthful and again, even expressing things that are just your opinion. Again, you could be wrong. Chances are you might be. A lot of times you are. Admitting you're wrong. That's a big part of it. Accepting the fact that you're wrong.
Ego.
Saying you're sorry. For sure. Saying you're sorry. And loving. But loving for real. Like in a real way. Being somebody and also being reliable. Being reliable. Like having them, unique. And that all comes from truth, and all these other pieces, lead into, people knowing they can rely on you, and knowing that, and sometimes I'm not good with the small stuff as good, but knowing that when it comes down and it gets heavy, that you're the one it's like they want to call you. They can, my girls, I can build such confidence in them if they know that they have this rock behind. They know that there's a big rock in the back. Then they can just go out and
do anything,
rip it up, and then because they know that they can turn around and there's a rock there, ready to
support,
be there for them.
What's the 3 things that you do every morning that you feel like is a must for you to do in order to have a successful day, in order to have the most out of your day? The 3 maybe habits that you have to perform. Something you eat, a practice, something with your family. What are those 3 things to set you up to win?
To set me up to win? Well, I definitely, I need to shower when I wake up. Like as soon as I wake up, I need to go in the water, like rinse off, be in the water, dive in the water, swim in the water, whatever. But get ultimately like
pool, water.
But shower first, like out of the bed, going straight to the shower. That just
cold, hot.
Cold, hot, but normally cold always at the end. If I go hot, otherwise just straight, stand in the cold shower. Got to have that. That's just like that gets me rolling in the beginning. Then from there we go to fuel up. Whatever it's a combination of a little morning rituals, whether it's sea salt, water, lemon, some mushroom powder, some raw eggs. And then I'm gonna caffeinate.
Raw eggs?
I'm going to caffeinate.
Raw eggs?
Yeah.
Are you rocky?
Yeah, in a way.
I like it.
In a way. There's a rocky aspect of it.
How many raw eggs do you have?
Couple raw eggs every day.
Oh.
So I make it easy. You poke a hole in them and you just suck them out of the egg. It doesn't have that same effect.
Really?
You don't gag on them. No gag reflex.
Okay.
But and then fuel, like caffeine up, caffeinate that. So that's all part of that morning ritual, like the fueling. And then ultimately it's the girls, contact with the girls.
That's great.
The good morning kiss from Gabby and maybe a hot cocoa espresso conversation, little kiss on the girls, touch the girls, see the girls, and then and then we're ready to
rock and roll.
whatever we got to do, climb a hill, knock a tree, whatever,
workout, yeah.
whatever it is, lay around and breathe,
Exactly, for an
whatever,
hour.
whatever, yeah.
Sweat and almost pass out.
Yeah.
What are if it's the last day of your life and you've got 3 truths of all the 50 lives you've lived, and you could boil it down to 3 simple truths about life to share with your family, your friends, the world. You got a piece of paper, you can write them down, and that's all they got to have of you with these 3 things left. What would you say are those 3 truths?
And but like parables. Well, I'm going to have to give you the one that my mom gave me, which is if you can't be true to yourself, then you can't be true to anyone. I'd have to put that right up there at the top because that's just mandatory. And again, I'd have to go. I got to go hard right again on this one, and I'd be, speed and take chances.
Speed and take chances.
Speed and take chances. Absolutely. Yeah. Because that brings a focus on. That's how I tell people, like, that's my, like people go, be safe, have a safe trip. I'm like, speed and take chances. Like, because in a way, that's more, caution killed the cat. It's like, you gotta be like a little more like, go into it with, I don't know. I think it's a longer list than that, but those are the ones that just pop out right away. Can't be true to yourself, can't be true to anyone, which ultimately you need to be true to everyone, and then what else?
The third one.
The third one would be that's a pretty tough one. I'm trying to think. Maybe the third one I might have to give you the third one because I have a couple different ways I want to go with it. But I don't. I feel like I'll waste what would be the most important. I'm going to croak, and I got to kind of. I think
take your time.
I'd have to go with love. I'd have to go. You got to love your, you got to go first. And Gabby has that. She's been saying that about being first. But you got to, you just got to, you got to go with love your, love your neighbors as yourself, or, I think we need to be nice to people.
Okay. I like those
I'm
3
going with
truths.
that one.
I like those 3 truths.
That's it.
I have one final question for you, but before we ask it, what are you working on? What are you excited about? Your businesses, you've got these food, you've made this incredible coffee for me this morning. You've got stand-up paddle boards. You got, tell me everything you got going on. Where can we connect with you online?
Well, I got Laird Stand-Up, which is stand-up paddling equipment, which obviously I was instrumental in starting that sport.
Yeah.
And so that's a bunch of stand-up equipment for flat water, waves, learning, experts, all that kind of stuff, and some really nice equipment. So Laird Stand-Up, and then I have an apparel line that we're just launching, a Laird apparel stuff that I'm doing, which is
it's part of the hats up here. I saw.
Yeah, that's one of the parts of it. And then but it's a technical line, which all kinds of really like technical. Surf shorts and shirts that dry really quick, and fitness workout stuff and stretch stuff, and like a whole things that you're going to need in the daily life of kind of thing. And then I have this thing called the Total Wave that we're used. It's by the pool that you didn't see. That's like this roller.
That's yours.
That's a roller pipe. Yeah.
Wow.
And Gabby and I are involved in that project.
That's cool.
And it's a roller fitness device that uses momentum. And so you can do all these different exercises, and it has this kind of movement that's not only sport specific for any board sport or skiing or any kind of movement, but then it's amazing for just agility and balance, and it's a whole connective tissue kind of thing where you use the whole body to do it.
Sure.
So there's some cardio aspects to that. So the Total Wave, and then the golf board. Is exploding. That's the one right now that we have a lot of push behind as well.
Sure.
And the golf board is, you're going to see it on a lot of the golf courses, but you can go to golfboard.com.
Golfboard.com.
And check that out and laugh. And it's an
out.
all-wheel drive electric board that you play golf on that's revolutionizing the game of golf.
Really?
It's speeding up play. It's making good players play better. It's bringing new people into it. It's allowing older people, a whole new perspective. It's a little bit like and I don't know if you know stand-up paddle's effect on kind of water sports, but stand-up paddling is the fastest growing sport in the world right now, and has been for the last couple of years. And it's because it's accessibility, mobility, perspective. It just changes your whole experience, and that's what the golf board's doing in golf. And then I have LairdSuperfood.com.
You just launched this, right? Laird's Superfood or Laird?
Laird,
no S.
Laird Superfood. Yep.
Yeah.
LairdSuperfood.com, and that we have. We have some formulas like the one you tried this morning.
Incredible.
We have a powdered formula for people that like powders better. That especially if you're a coffee drinker, but it's meant to be put in tea or hot cocoa as well. And there's also some dessert stuff that they're making with it.
That's great.
Then we're gonna have recipes, and you can go to LairdSuperfood.com, and we got a whole, and then we have coffee beans on there, and then these other top fuel formula and coconut sugar and a bunch of other products that we're launching. And it's, that one's, all these things that I'm involved in are all authentic to me. It's things that I use naturally or I'm involved with it, because that's just the nature of my approach. I think that's the only sincere thing, the way that I can do it. And then, so that's the big pusher are those items right now. And then I have another thing called XPT, which is extreme pool training, which you didn't get to experience, but
hopefully I can come back and do it sometime.
But you got to experience the land part of it, which is that land stuff we implement into the water. But it's something a little bit different. And then that's those are the main
things you're working on.
Yeah, and I also have we're in the process of shooting a documentary about foiling. Okay. So there's a lady by the name of Roy Kennedy, who's one of the Kennedys that is, but she's also a famous documentarian director. And so we're doing a film about hydrofoil surfing and the pursuit of trying to ride the biggest, furthest, fastest waves in the world. Wow. And so that's another one of our thrusts.
That's cool.
And well, it's just, it's
lots of fun things.
Absolutely.
That's
awesome.
I
think it's only natural to just keep evolving, and these are things I'm excited about, stuff I do, or that I do naturally, and so it's why not?
Very cool. We'll have it all linked up below in the show notes as well.
Yeah.
Final question before I ask, I always finish with an acknowledgement of my guest.
Yes.
So I want to acknowledge you for.
All right.
I've only experienced you for a couple hours now, but from everything I know about you, things I've heard about you, the research, I want to acknowledge you for your consistency. You've been so consistent over your whole career, your whole life, of being true to who you are. So I'm acknowledging you secondly for your truth.
Yes.
And being unapologetically you all the time from everything I've seen and our experience together.
Yeah.
And also the third thing I want to acknowledge is your courage. Your consistent courage.
Yes.
To be able to sustain this over the years, and how you serve so many people, just the level of service and care and grace that you have as a manly man. You have so much grace about you, whether you know that or not.
Thank you.
And I was experiencing that during the breathing exercises when I was about to pass out.
Sure.
I want to really acknowledge you for all that you do for so many people, and for your consistency, your truth, and your care.
Thank you.
And your courage.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks a lot.
The final question
is,
what's your definition of greatness?
What's my definition? It's probably long. It's a long, but great is great is compassionate. Absolutely. Incapable of being great without being compassionate. Great is humble, because you're not great unless you're humble. So we got compassionate and humble. Great is courageous. You got to be courageous.
Yeah.
So got to be compassionate, got to be humble, got to be courageous.
Yeah.
Great is loving. Got to be loving. If you're not loving, then you're definitely not compassionate.
Sure.
And that's that would probably be. And what else? I think it goes on and on, but I'll start with that.
Awesome. Laird Hamilton, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it
pleasure.
so much for having me.
Thank you.
Means a
It was
lot.
my pleasure.